Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome everyone to our fourth lecture of the Project Management Professional course. So 1 week already went by, and by this we conclude around 20% of our course, because our course is only 5 weeks. So 1 week has already gone by. 20%. As you see, days go by very quickly, and I hope you're enjoying the course. I also hope you have had the chance to review some of the lectures in the weekend, and that everything sounds understandable and clear to you. Okay. So in the last few lectures, actually, we started explaining a little bit about the business context, right? We explained the influences on the project, whether internal or external, whether organizational process assets that you can take into consideration when you, especially when you plan for your project. We went through explaining the details of the different organizational structures, and the advantages and disadvantages of each organizational structure. And then we explained as well the different approaches of project management. We talked a little bit about tailoring and the importance of tailoring. So you need all the time to tailor your approach in a way that fits your project size, your project industry, your project complexity, and in a way that fits also your organization as well. And I think we also answered some questions about, or similar questions that might appear in the exam, and had a look at how questions can appear in the exam. So if you don't have any questions, we can proceed to the next chapter, to the next point, which is the project manager and the characteristics, the attributes of the project manager, the expected characteristics and the expected attributes of a project manager, of a professional, actually, project manager. So in this chapter, we will discuss the difference between leadership and management. And we will also talk about the responsibilities of the project manager within the team. We will also discuss the forms of power that a project manager can use to influence their team. We will also discuss the leadership styles that the project manager can practice as well. We will explain something that is now important nowadays, which is the diversity awareness and cultural competence. When you work with different people coming from different cultures and from different nationalities, then how would you make sure of actually exploiting this opportunity of having people from different cultures, from different backgrounds, from different experiences, which would enrich actually your project. We will also talk a little bit in details about the servant leadership concept, something that agile project management focuses on. And we will finish this chapter by explaining also the PMI triangle, the Project Management Institute triangle, or talent triangle, which are basically the talents that the Project Management Institute encourages in a project manager. Okay, so let's start first by explaining a little bit about the project manager and the management and leadership. I think probably most of you have heard or have seen a lot about leadership in the social media, especially in the last couple of years, right? There's a trend about leadership and about how bosses should act actually as leaders more than managers, right? So what actually distinguishes a leader from manager? What makes a leader different from a manager? I would say there are two important things that distinguish a leader from a manager. The first thing is a leader has always a vision. The leader knows where we should be heading. He has a vision of where we should be at in a couple of years or at the end of the road. So they have a vision. While managers basically focus on doing the things right every day without specifically getting to know where is this ship headed to. Okay, so leaders have the vision, they focus on the vision. The other thing, the other factor that distinguishes a leader from a manager is the ability to motivate their teams to achieve this vision that they have. So leaders, you will have them, you will see them gifted with this talent of motivating people, of motivating their people, of motivating their team, of influencing their team and creating that kind of enthusiasm to make them follow them into the future that they perceive, the vision that they have set. And this basically what distinguishes a leader from a manager. The leader has a vision and they are also able to sell the vision to their team and motivate the team to help them realize that vision. So basically, those are the two probably most important traits of any leader, okay? So would the project manager basically be a purely or only a manager, or should he or she practice leadership as well? Now, the answer is obviously the project manager should also be a leader, because each project should have a vision, right? Each project is launched to achieve some vision and probably to carry out some mission, right? So if we don't have that vision and a mission in a project, then the team in the project will not understand basically, why are we doing this project? What's the purpose? What's the vision? What's the mission that we need to accomplish here, right? So that's it. That's why it's important for the project manager to not only be a manager, but also practice leadership skills, as we will explain later on with details. So basically, the project manager should lead the project with a vision, should educate the team and other stakeholders about the value we seek to achieve, should promote teamwork and collaboration, this kind of motivation that I have explained, the other trait, right? The project manager assists the team by providing them with resources, with necessary resources, for instance, project management tools and techniques. The project manager removes the roadblocks, the obstacles that the project team might face in the project. They articulate the project's mission, and they all the time remind the project team about the vision and the mission of the project and why we should be doing this job and what we should be arriving at the end of the project. And they promote the project mission and values. They also set or help the team set a common values that we work all together according to in order to achieve the vision and mission. And by doing this, the project manager keeps the team motivated, focused, and make them also feel pride doing their tasks and doing their jobs. Okay, so this is why it's important for the project manager to be a leader as well. Okay, now if you want to go into details and explain what's the difference between management and leadership, here's a list. But basically all of these differences come from, again, from the two important traits that I told you about them, which are the vision and the ability to motivate. So basically, while the management direct using their positional power, management tend to use the positional power, you know, you need to follow me because I am your manager, because I have the position of management. While leaders don't tend to use this positional power. They don't use the position in order to motivate people. No, they guide, they influence, they collaborate, they use their relational power, they use their good relation with other people in order to influence them, in order to motivate them, in order to, again, to sell them the vision of the project. Managers maintain or tend to maintain the status quo, while leaders tend to develop the status and develop the capabilities of the people and develop the situation that we are in. So they want to improve all the time. They seek to improve. Managers administrate while leaders innovate. They try all the time to find new ways of doing things. They try all the time to think out of the box, okay? Managers rely on control while leaders inspire trust. Leaders trust their team, trust their people. Managers tend to control, you know, use the micromanagement in order to get things done. Managers focus on system and structure. Leaders focus on relationship, creating trust and relationship, good relationship with their team, with their people. Managers focus on the near-term goals, while leaders focus on the long range vision. Managers ask, how do we do this and when do we do this, which is the efficiency, but leaders focus on why should we be doing this, not other things, and what should we be doing in the first place, which is effectiveness. Managers focus on the bottom line, while leaders focus again on the horizon, the vision. Managers accept the status quo, the current situation, and they want to maintain it, while leaders challenge the status quo and they want to develop it. Managers focus on doing things right, again, efficiency, while leaders focus on doing the right things. Managers focus on operational issues and problem solving, while leaders focus on vision, alignment, motivation, and inspiration. This is in details the difference between management and leadership. Okay? You agree with that, everyone? So basically, what are the responsibilities of a project manager who's also supposed to practice leadership within the team? Those are the main responsibilities of the project manager. So again, to lead, it's the leadership. To communicate the organization's vision and inspire, motivate project team to focus on the goals of the project. We want to make sure all the time that we have this kind of alignment again, that all the efforts that you are putting in the project, all the tasks that we are doing in the project will lead us to achieve the goals and realize the vision of the project. 2, facilitation. So the project manager facilitates. And by this we mean effectively guide the team successfully to find a solution for the problem. They don't impose their point of views. They don't force their teams to do something that they don't think is right. They facilitate, they empower the team to make them find their own way of doing the right things. So facilitation. Number 3, political awareness. Now this is very important for project managers. They need to be politically aware of the political environment of the organization that we are working in, aware of the influences, different influences between different people, aware of the lobbying that is taking place in the working environment. So project managers should be politically aware, should be diplomatic people that can get things done without the need of having to force someone to do something, or without having to use their positional power again, only using their diplomacy and political awareness. And last but not least, networking. Project managers should network, should facilitate creating this healthy relationships among stakeholders, among project team and stakeholders, so that knowledge is shared at all levels. Networking is creating relationships, healthy relationships that would facilitate transferring the knowledge between all the levels of stakeholders. So these are the main 4 responsibilities of a project manager within the team. What are the forms of power that the project manager can use? You have first, as we mentioned, the project manager can use their formal power, their positional power, because they have the position or the title as managers. So they ask people to do the tasks because they are the managers. Now, this is, of course, not the best form of power, right? Because as we mentioned earlier, leaders tend to use their relational power, right? Their expert power, as we mentioned, which is the best actually type or the best form of power. So basically, formal is not the best form of power that a project manager should use, but maybe sometimes in some scenarios, you might want to use your formal power, your positional power. Another form of power is the referral. So basically, again, using your good relationship with the people, you can influence them to do the job that needs to be done using this referral power, using your relationship and your connection with other people, probably also with other influential people, okay? The best form of power that a project manager can use is the expert. We call it the expert power. Here, the people follow the project managers because they have confidence in their expertise, right? When you see someone or when you think that someone is expert in the field, you just follow them because you trust them, because you have deep trust in them, and you know that they won't, take you to somewhere that you don't want to be, or do something that is wrong to do, because they're experts in the field. So this form of power that the project manager can use by showing their expertise, by showing that they are experts in the field, they gain confidence, they gain trust, they gain respect from the team, and people will follow them for their expertise. And this is the best form of power. Sometimes it shows up as a question, and as a question is in the exam. They ask you somewhere or another, what is the best form of power? So the best form of power is the expert power, okay? And the worst form of power is the penalty power. When you threaten people, when you threaten people that you will punish them if they don't do their jobs on time or correctly or something. So when you use this penalty power, you make people afraid all the time. They do their jobs because they're afraid of you. They're afraid of the penalty, which is something that's not good because it's negative. It's actually, it makes them frustrated, right? So they won't give you the best of what they can do. They're just doing it because they're afraid of you, or they're afraid of the penalty that can take place upon them, right? So these are the 4 forms of power that the project manager can practice. And again, the best form of power is the expert power, followed by the referral power, then probably the formal power and the penalty power, okay? Now, there are also different leadership styles that the project manager can practice. First of all, for any leader to be a successful leader, to be really able to motivate people and influence people, leaders have to have strong personal ethics, integrity, and trustworthiness. Leaders don't tolerate ethics. The tolerance in ethics is zero. We need to be all the time and to act all the time ethically, with integrity, with honesty. And we will have actually a few lectures later from now. We will have probably a good explanation or a thorough explanation of the professional and social responsibility of a project manager. But the bottom line is, a project manager, a professional project manager, and a successful project manager and a successful leader will show all the time integrity, will act all the time within the ethics. They cannot do otherwise, because otherwise people will not believe them anymore, people will not trust them anymore, people will not follow them anymore. So this is the very important thing. Second, leaders have interpersonal skills. They should have this ability to communicate with other people, again, to collaborate with other people, to motivate other people, to negotiate with other people. They have the best soft skills in order to create the healthy relationships with the team and with other stakeholders, and to have this kind of positive influence on the people. And leaders have conceptual and analytical skills. They are able to analyze different and difficult situations and facilitate and guide the team towards achieving a goal or towards finding a solution to a problem. They are able to conceptualize, to analyze any problem and decompose it into small parts and help the people think of it in different perceptions and from different perspectives until they find the right solution for it. Now, leadership styles. We have certain different leadership styles that the leader can use. First of all, we have the laissez-faire leadership style. Now, laissez-faire is a French word which means, or which translates into let them doing, let them do. So in this leadership style, the project manager actually does not interfere at any level, any way, with what the team is doing. The project manager just let them do what they want to do. They don't interfere at all. Now, this can be a little bit dangerous, right? When you give all the, the delegation, all levels of delegation to the team and let them do the work the way that they want, without monitoring, without supervising, without even coaching. You don't do that actually unless you're 100% pretty sure that the team is capable and the team is trustworthy, right? So you use this when you are very much sure that your team can do that and will do that with confidence. So basically, you just sit back, relax, and let them do what they're supposed to do. This is what we call the laissez-faire leadership style. The opposite of it, on the other side, we have the transactional leadership style. Now, this is a kind of the, leadership that they practice in the military, where leaders here are pretty much, very much organized and disciplined, and they want the team to follow the discipline. So basically, it's a very disciplined leadership style that focuses on doing the right things at the right time and monitoring that all the time. This is what we call the transactional leadership style. We have another leadership style, which is the transformational leadership style. So here the leaders want to lead a transformation. They want to create a transformation in the culture. They want to change so many things in the culture and to invent a new working environment and working values. So this is the kind of leader that that acts on transformation. And this is what we call the transformational leadership style. Number 4 is the servant leadership, which we most of the time use in the agile approaches. Agile approaches are known for using servant leadership. In this style, the leader acts as a servant for the team. So basically, they provide the team with all the resources that they need to do the job. They protect the team from any distractions. They remove any blocks or anything that blocks the teamwork. So they act as, again, facilitators to remove any blocks from the team way of achieving work or doing work. So basically, they act as servants for the team, empower the team, give the team the ability to self-organize and self-direct. They don't assign tasks to the team. They leave the team to organize the roles among themselves and to distribute the responsibilities among themselves. And by this, we mean, this is what we mean by self-organizing and self-directing. So we trust them to do the job that they need to do, and we empower them to do that, and we protect them and shield them from any interruptions or distractions that they might face, and we provide them with all the resources that they might need. Okay, so this is the servant leadership, and we will get back also. You will hear actually this term all along the course. We will talk all the time, especially when we talk about the agile approaches, we will talk about acting as a servant leader. Now, the other leadership style is the charismatic leadership. Now, here the leader uses their charisma, their ability to, to influence people by doing public speeches, by having this strong personality, by having this strong ethics and integrity. So basically, people follow them because of their high charismatic personalities, and this is what we call the charismatic leadership style. Last but not least is the interactional leadership style, which is a mix actually of different styles, or what we call also the situational leadership, where the leader selects the proper style to use in the proper situation. So it's an interactional leadership style. Okay, any questions so far? Everything is clear? Again, servant leadership is something that is commonly used in agile approaches. It encourages the self-definition and self-discovery and self-awareness of the team members by listening to them, by coaching them, by providing them with the proper environment in order for them to be a successful team. So the project manager here facilitates rather than manages the team. They provide coaching and training. They remove any work impediments. They focus on accomplishment. And by the way, you will get a lot of questions focusing on servant leadership, because now it's actually the trend, especially in the agile approaches. So you will get lots of questions about agile, about servant leadership. One important point as well that you need also to take into consideration when you want to practice leadership and project management is the diversity awareness and cultural competence. Now, most of the time, nowadays, you're working with people coming from different cultures, from different backgrounds, with different experiences, and this would actually enrich the working environment because of this, because of this diversity. But you need to make sure that this diversity does not turn into something negative. It does not turn into conflicts between the team, does not turn into communication barriers, for instance, between the team, because they come from different cultures or different backgrounds. So what you need to do here as a project manager is to make sure to maintain an open and honest working environment that inspires trust among the team, that facilitates the communication and openness between the team members among the team members in order to build trust, right? So we need actually, again, to exploit this opportunity of having different cultures in the working environment, of having different backgrounds, of having different, experiences that can actually help us think in different ways, think out of the box, that can help us innovate in finding solutions to the problems that we have in the project. So as a project manager, I need to make sure of maintaining this healthy and open communication and healthy relationship between or among the project team members. Sometimes in order to do that, we do what we call a diversity training or a diversity awareness training. We actually encourage every one of the team to introduce to us their culture, how they do things, a little bit about their backgrounds, a little bit about their cultures, about their habits, and so on. This will help break the ice, among the team members, and will help create this open and transparent environment where the team members start to trust each other and work with each other as a team and as a whole. Okay, so this is something important, and you will find probably one question or another about diversity awareness and cultural competence in the exam. Okay, so here are some guidelines to manage the team. As a project manager and as a leader, you need to use your emotional intelligence, and we have a lecture also about the emotional intelligence, what is it and how we can use it, and other methods as well to flex your style to work best with each stakeholder. Again, you need to use the proper leadership style in the proper situation with the proper team members, and you need to use your emotional intelligence. You need to understand your internal motives and their internal motives, and you need to manage basically and control your behavior accordingly, and also manage your relationship with the team and with other stakeholders as well. Establish good communication among team members internally and externally. Monitor performance of team members on an ongoing basis all the time. You need to monitor their performance, because when you see a negative performance, then that means that there's an issue with the team. Probably they are not trusting each other well. Probably they have conflicts. Probably we have a communication barrier, for instance. So I need to monitor the performance all the time, just to make sure that we don't have that kind of issues, the kind of problems. We need to manage conflicts. Now, we expect conflicts, by the way. It's something normal to take place in any team. Conflicts will take all the time place in any team, but you need to manage them in the proper way, and to transform these conflicts from a disruptive conflicts to healthy conflicts that can be used actually to improve the performance of the team. And we establish an issue log. There's a document that we use, which is called the issue log. And this document is used to track and assign project issues. So whenever we have issues in the project, especially regarding the team and the team performance, then we log these issues in the issue log. Okay, so these are the guidelines of how to manage a team. Now, the PMI have developed what they call the PMI talent triangle. And we have the old triangle and the new triangle. Now, the PMI has a new talent triangle. The old triangle indicates that a professional project manager should have 3 talents, should establish 3 talents. The first talent is the technical project management talent. So professional project manager should have this technical project management skills, such as developing a schedule, such as estimating cost and developing a budget, such as developing a quality management plan, such as developing a procurement management plan, which are the 10, basically the 10 knowledge areas that we explained earlier, right? So this is what we mean by technical project management skills, okay? The technical project management talent. So this is the first aspect, or the first pillar of the triangle of a professional project manager, is to have this technical project management skills. The other dimension in the triangle is the leadership. The professional project manager, as we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, should practice leadership, not always management. They should have the skill of leading people, of clarifying vision and mission, and motivating people to realize this vision and mission. So leadership skills. And the last pillar of this talent triangle is the strategic and business management, which is again the business context that we were explaining in the last lecture. So the project manager, the professional project manager, should understand again the big picture, should understand the business context, should be able to tailor the management approach according to the business context, should understand the internal and external factors that impact their projects, and so on. No, technical project management is not the technical skills of building something or networking something. No, we don't hear. We are here by technical project management skills. We actually indicate the project management. Okay, again, the project management skill, not the technical, not the product technical skills. We're not here referring to the product technical skills, but to the project management skills. Okay. Now the PMI has developed this triangle lately into this triangle. Basically, they replaced the technical project management with what they call WOW, ways of working. So the project manager should be able to find the right way of doing things, the right way of working. So again, the right way of developing a schedule, the right way of developing a budget, the right way of developing a quality management plan, the right way or the right approach of managing the project, whether we should be managing the project in an agile or a predictive way, and so on. So now it's called the way of working, the WOW, ways of working, okay? They replaced leadership with power skills. So leadership can also be used again to motivate people and to influence people. So this would also include emotional intelligence, soft skills. So they rephrased it in a power skill. So those are the skills that you can use as a leader in order to, again, to influence people. So they replaced leadership with power skills. And they replaced strategic and business management with business acumen. So again, you are, as a project manager, as a professional project manager, you are completely aware of how business is running and how alignment should be done, and how your project is aligned with other projects and within probably a program or a portfolio in order to achieve strategic objective and so on. So they called it the business acumen. And this is now the new PMI talent triangle. Okay. Okay, I think we need to take 10 minutes for the prayers, and then we continue. So 10 minutes and we continue with a new chapter explaining the project management process. Okay, so see you in 10 minutes. Welcome back to the lecture. So again, to just put you in perspective, we started this course by explaining the very basic things of project management, by the definition of the project, the definition of the project management, and then we explained how the project management is used in the organization to achieve strategic goals. So we explained the OPM, the program management, the portfolio management. We also explain the business context. So what are the influences on the project, the internal and external factors, and the organizational process assets. We explained the different types of organizational structures and how they impact the way that we manage projects with. We also explained the different approaches of project management, the traditional approach, the iterative approach, the incremental approach, and the agile approach. And then we explained the project manager role and responsibility by focusing also on the leadership skills of a project manager. Now we continue, and in this chapter we should more light about we should more light about project management processes. So what are the processes, and how can they be used in developing a project management plan, for instance, and why they are why before the 7th version we used a process-based approach, while in the 7th edition we use principle approach, as we mentioned, right? So in this chapter we will shed some light on this on these concepts. So we'll start by the definition of a process. What is a process? And then we will distinguish between product management processes and project management processes, and how the processes interact, the project management processes interact, and what are the project management process groups, and how to read the project management process chart that exists in the 6th edition. Now, someone would say that why do we need to explain about the processes, and why do we need to know about the processes, since the 7th edition is not a process-based? Remember that until now, and according to the PMI exam contents outlines, you're supposed to still face around 50% of the questions on the processes domain. So you need to understand actually at least what are the processes, and you need to know how to read the processes. You need to know what are the 5 process groups of the project management. So basically it's important. It's important for the exam, and it's important actually for the real life too, because especially if you are using the predictive approach. The predictive approach is completely process-based. The waterfall approach is completely process-based. So you need to understand thoroughly the processes, okay? So this is the purpose of this chapter, to help you understand what are the processes, the project management processes, and how they interact, and what are the 5 process groups, and how I can read them and follow them when we manage the project in a traditional way. Okay? Fair enough? Okay, so let's start by the first point. What is a process? A process is a repetitive work that has inputs into it. So it's a repetitive endeavor that has inputs into it. These inputs will be handled by tools and techniques, and the tools and techniques will transform those inputs into outputs. For instance, think of a production line. If we have a production line, so you have the inputs at the beginning of the production line, which are probably the raw materials going into the production line. So when the raw materials go into the production line, we will have the tools and techniques that will take the raw materials and process them into packages, into, I don't know, other processes. And at the end of the line, we will have the outputs, which are, I don't know, cans or something of food. And this will continue and will repeat all the time, right? So this is the process. You have this repetitive endeavor that has inputs going into it. Those inputs are processed using tools and techniques, and you will have outputs of that. Now we have to distinguish here between the product-oriented processes and the project management processes. The product-oriented processes are the processes that we use in order to create the deliverables. In order to build, for instance, a tower, you have certain processes that you need to use. In order to create a network, you have certain processes that you need to do to create the network. In order to develop an application, you have a certain processes that you need to do to develop the application. Those are product-oriented processes, and those processes are different from one product to another. If the product is different, then you have other different processes in order to develop the product, right? So these processes depend on the product that you want to create. But project management processes are the processes that we use in managing any project, regardless of the product that we are creating in the project. So regardless if your project is developing an application, or your project is constructing a tower, or your project is writing a book, whatever your project is, you will all the time use the same project management processes because they are independent from the product. It doesn't matter what the product is, you will still use the same processes to develop a schedule for your project. You will still use the same processes to develop, for instance, a budget for your project. You will still use the same processes in order to identify the project risks and analyze them and prepare your risk response plans and so on. Okay, so project management processes apply globally and across industry groups. They are not related to the product. Okay, although of course the project exists within the organization and it's influenced again by internal and external factors, but the project management processes are independent and will be used the same as in any different product or in different project that creates a different product. Okay, does that make sense to you? Okay. Now, what do you think the type of processes that we need to use while managing the project? If we went back a little to the project life cycle, when we explained the project life cycle, we explained that the project life cycle consists of 4 generic phases, right? You remember that. 4 generic phases. The first phase is starting or initiating the project. The second phase is organizing or planning the project. The third phase is executing the project. And the fourth phase is closing the project, right? Project, not product, not the product life cycle, the project life cycle, okay? Okay, so basically, when the project goes into these 4 phases in the life cycle, I need, as a project manager, I need processes to manage the project in each phase. Is that correct? So basically, I will need some processes in order to initiate the project. I will need processes in order to plan the project. I need processes to execute the project. And I need processes to close the project. Does that make sense? Yeah, because this is what the generic phases are. Okay, so you have a group of processes to initiate the project. You have a group of processes to plan the project. You have a group of processes to execute the project, and you have a group of processes to close the project. But is that it all? Is that all I need to manage the project? Initiating, planning, executing, and closing? Actually, No, you still have a fifth process group. No, it's not the continuous improvement. It's the monitoring and controlling process group. Yes, you need processes to monitor the performance of the project and to control the project in order for the project not to go out of control, right? I want to make sure that the project is going as per the plan, as we have planned, right? So we need a fifth group of processes, which are processes that we use to monitor and correct, control and correct the project if needed. So we call this fifth group the monitoring and controlling process group. So here you go. How many process groups we have? 5 process groups. One group of processes to initiate the project. One group of processes to plan the project. One group of processes to execute the project. One group of processes to close the project. And the fifth is a process group to monitor and control the project, right from day one until the last day of the project. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so we have 5 process groups. Now, do we use each process group independently from the other groups? So, for instance, when launching the project or initiating the project, we only use the initiating process groups. When planning the project, we only use the planning process group, not other groups. Or is there some kind of overlapping between those process groups? The answer is yes, there should be some overlapping, right, between those process groups. Because, for instance, in one day in the project, you might be initiating a new phase of the project, closing an old phase of the project, planning for, I don't know, some work to do in the next phase, monitoring and controlling some part of your project, and so on, right? So these process groups actually can overlap and can interact, and you might find yourself again in one day using initiating process groups, planning process groups, executing process groups, monitoring and controlling process group, and closing process groups, okay? Now, this graph here indicates that for you. For instance, this is the timeline, of course, of the project life cycle. So, for instance, in the first days of the project, now, most of the time you are using the initiating process groups. But you might also be, especially when you initiate few things and you want, for instance, to identify stakeholders of your project, which is an initiation process as well. So basically, you do that and you continue to do that until probably sometime until the middle of the project. You continue identifying stakeholders of your project, which is an initiation process. And when you initiate something, maybe you start planning for it immediately, right? So you have here the planning processes that start immediately after initiating. Executing will start immediately after planning. Now notice the planning can continue until probably the third of the timeline of the project. Because what? Because the plan is always updated. I think we explained that earlier, right? You don't just plan one time only and put the plan on the shelf and leave it there. No, you continue to update your plan along the project life cycle. Whenever you discover new things, whenever you have changes coming, right? Then you need to update your plan all the time. And for that reason, you might start using the planning processes early in the project. And most probably in the middle of your project, but you continue actually to use planning processes until probably the third or just before closing the project in a few days or in a few weeks. Okay, so planning will continue on. Same thing for executing process group. You might start using executing processes immediately after planning, because whatever you planned, you can start executing. And then you continue using those executing processes until probably the finish or a little bit before the finish or the closing of your project. Closing processes, maybe you start using them sometime in the middle of the project and until the last day of the project. Now, if you noticed, probably the only process group that you start using from day one until the last day is the monitoring and controlling process group, because you need to monitor your project and control it all the time on all days in the project life cycle. Okay, so the bottom line is, as we mentioned, you have 5 process groups to use to manage your project, right from initiating your project and planning your project, executing your project, closing your project, and monitoring and controlling your project. And these processes in the process group can interact and can overlap. Okay, does that make sense to you? Okay, now if we go to the process chart according to the 6th edition of the PMBOK guide, you find it in the, again, you find it in the shared folder that I have provided you with. So within the training materials, you will have this, we call it Ricardo Vargas, which is actually the person who has developed it, because you won't find it in the PMBOK guide with this, with these colors and with this organization. So Ricardo Vargas, thankfully, developed this chart, which is clearer to explain and clearer to read as well. So basically, this chart has all the processes that you need to manage your project. Again, especially if you are using what? The traditional, right? The traditional approach of managing projects, because the traditional approach or the predictive, the waterfall, depends on processes. So here you go, the 5 process groups. We have the initiating process group consisting of 2 processes, as you can see. The first process is develop project charter. So this is the first process that we do in the project. We start by developing a project charter, right? And identify stakeholders. And then we have the planning process group, which is the largest process group consisting of 24 processes. And then we have the executing process group, which consists of 10 processes. And then we have the monitoring and controlling process group, which consists of 12 processes. And last but not least, we have the closing group, which consists of 1 process. Okay, so the total is, if you calculate the total, there are 49 processes according to the PMBOK guide version 6 that you can use as a project manager to manage your project throughout the project life cycle. Okay, now remember that, as we mentioned earlier, each process will have inputs to it. So for instance, in order to develop the project charter, I need some inputs. For instance, I need the business case. I need the benefits management plan, right? I need the contract if it was a contract-based project. So I need some inputs to develop the project charter. And I need some tools to develop the project charter. So I might need to consult with some experts. So it's an expert judgment. I need this tool, expert judgment. I need to do brainstorming. So brainstorming is a tool that I need to use in order to develop the project charter. and output, which is obviously here. What's the output of this process? The output is the project charter, right? So for each process of those 49 processes, you have the inputs, the tools and techniques, and the outputs. But do we need to memorize them for the exam? No, not at all, especially after the changes in the exam. Now you will never be asked again about the inputs of that process or the tools and techniques of it or the outputs. Rarely you might get 1 or 2 questions maximum that you can answer if you understand actually, or if you follow the concept of processes with us when we explain it later on. Okay, so these are the 49 processes distributed again over 5 groups and used to manage the project throughout the project life cycle. Now, this chart gives us some indications, some beautiful indications actually, that you can read this chart and conclude something. For instance, what is the largest process group here? Again, what's the largest process group here that you can see? The planning, correct, 24 processes. Almost half of the processes are in the planning process group, correct. What does this mean? It means probably the most important thing to do for you, the project manager, is what? Yeah, to plan. The most efforts go into planning the project, right? Yeah, 24 processes are planning process groups because you need actually to plan for all the aspects of your project. And now this is another actually thing to note, which is the planning process group has all the colors. Now, what about the colors? We didn't explain that. What about the colors? Why some processes are in black? Why other processes are in dark blue? Why other processes are in white, blue, in green, dark green, white, green? What are those colors? Yes, those colors relate to the knowledge areas. We explained that there are 10 knowledge areas, right, that the project manager should have. So yes, for instance, the black is the integration, as you can see. So any process here in black means that this is an integration process. Any process in dark blue means this is a scope management process. Light blue, it's a scheduling process, regardless where it is, where is it in any group, regardless whether it's in the execution or executing process group or in the monitoring and controlling process group. Okay, any dark process is a scope management process. Any yellow, for instance, process is a risk management process, and so on, right? So you have here 10 colors corresponding to the 10 knowledge areas that we explained earlier, okay? So if you look at the planning again process group, you will find all the 10 colors in the planning process group. What does this mean? It means that planning will cover all the aspects of the project. The planning should cover, of course, the scope, the schedule, the cost, the quality, the resources, the communication, the risks, the procurement, the stakeholders, aspects of the project, and will integrate, there is a process for integrating all these aspects into one project management plan. And for that reason, we have here this integration process, develop project management plan, because we need to take all of these plans and integrate them into one project management plan. Okay? Does that make sense to you? Okay, and so on. Now you have, or you can read, hopefully, all the processes and know what are the processes in executing, what are the processes in monitoring and controlling. In closing, actually, we have only one process, which is an integration process, which is the closed project or phase. Okay, does that make sense? So this is the process chart, and this is how we read the process chart. Again, you won't get questions. There are no questions now about the inputs, tools and techniques, outputs. No, the questions now are based on how you use those processes, especially the tools. What are the proper tools that you can use in order to create, for instance, a schedule, or in order to create a budget, or in order to create a risk register? How you identify risks in your project? How do you sequence the activities in your project, and so on? So now all the questions again are focused on the know-how, not on memorizing processes. And this is actually something good, because you don't need previously, before the exam changes, you need to memorize lots of processes, basically inputs, tools and techniques and outputs. Now you only need to understand, you only need to make sure that you are following the principles indicated in the 7th edition, and that's it. You are good. You can pass the exam easily. Okay? And this is how we will continue from now on. So from now on, we will do the following. We will take you from initiating the project. How do you initiate your project? And what are the processes, but without going into the details of the processes again, just how to initiate your project. And then how to plan for your project. So how to develop the project management plan. We explain all the plans and how to develop them and how to integrate them. And then how to execute your project. And then how to monitor and control your project. And lastly, how to close your project. This is how we will continue the course. In order for you to make it more sense to you, to relate things together, and to make it more understandable, okay? Now, every time we talk about anything, for instance, we will talk about initiating the project. We talk about how you initiate your project in the traditional approach, and then we or I give you some notes regarding the agile approach. Okay, so basically the main flow is the traditional approach, but then we will compare it with what happens in the agile approach. Hopefully this will again make you feel comfortable and make it more sensible to you and more understandable to you. Okay, any question regarding the processes, the process chart? No question at all? Excellent. So before we go explaining, as I told you, the initiating, planning, executing, and after the break, we'll take now a break, 15 minutes break, we will start explaining or giving you an introduction. It's not an introduction, actually, it's a little bit in details about the agile project management, okay? So 15 minutes and we will meet again to talk about the agile project management. Thank you. Welcome back to the lecture. And now that we have explained for you how the traditional approach goes based on project management processes, and according to the PMI 6th edition, those are 49 processes distributed over 5 process groups. and we explained how they interrelate and interact. Now let's go and explain how the Agile project management works in a little bit more details, and right from the beginning. We explained basically how the approach in general works, but let's get more into details about how it works and what are the principles behind it. The Agile project management was actually introduced in 2001 when a team of experts in software development gathered in a spa. Actually, they were just having fun. So they gathered and they discussed the different ways they were managing their projects with, and they came to the conclusion that there are certain principles and there are certain values that makes the management approach or the management approaches more efficient and more relevant. So basically, they created what we call the Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto is a document which was actually the certificate of birth of Agile project management, and it declares 4 core values, pillars of the Agile, and 12 supportive principles or supporting principles. Let's explore those 4 core values and the 12 supporting principles. Now, the 4 core values are very important actually, and you need to memorize them. Sorry to say that, but they are only 4, okay? And you need to memorize them because it's important. And actually, it's the Agile again is an umbrella of so many approaches, as we will explain later on, as you will see later on. So basically, it's a mindset too. And this mindset is based on those 4 core values or pillars. And this is another reason for you to make sure that you know those core values or those core pillars. Let's have a look at them. The first core value indicates that individuals and interactions are prioritized. We mean by over, they are prioritized over processes and tools. So what is more important in managing a project? The individuals and the interaction that takes place between or among those individuals, or the processes and tools that we use? What is more important, actually? The people, right? Because the people create the processes, the people use the tools, the people create the deliverables at the end of the day, right? So people and interaction, healthy interaction taking place among those individuals is more important than the processes and tools. Okay, this is the first core value of the Agile project management or in the Agile Manifesto. Individuals and interactions come first, and then processes and tools. Now, we don't mean by this that processes and tools are completely irrelevant and unimportant. They are still relevant and they are still important, but priority is again given to individuals, to the team, and the interaction. Okay, this is the first principle or value. The second value is working software over comprehensive documentation. Again, what's more important for the customer? To have a working software or to have comprehensive documentation without, for instance, a working software? At the end of the day, the customer would like to receive what? A working product, right? Now, regardless of software or not software, as I mentioned to you, those people, all of them came from a software background, and that's why it's mentioned here software. But you can use the word product instead of software. So for the customer, what's more important is to receive a working product. Now, documentation again is important because the customer probably needs to go sometime to the documentation to understand how to operate this product, or if they have some issue with the product, how to resolve this issue. But again, the most important thing is a working product, right? So working product, working software or any other product over comprehensive documentation, right? The third value is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So what is important? What is more important? To stick to the terms and conditions of the contract and go literally by those terms and conditions, or to show flexibility and to collaborate and cooperate with the customer in order to deliver them the value that they are seeking. What's more important, actually? What is more important is to collaborate with the customer and to have this flexibility in the contract so we can deliver the value that the customer is seeking. So if the customer needs to change something in the contract that will increase the value of the work that we are doing or the project that we are doing, then we are okay with this. We won't mind this, okay? The last core value is responding to change over following a plan. So again, do we stick to the plan and don't allow the plan to change whatever the reasons are, or better, we should respond to changes on timely manner in order again to make sure that we are delivering the right value to the customer? No, it's more important to be able to respond to changes quickly rather than following or sticking to a specific plan. Okay, those are the 4 core values of the Agile project management. And actually, any approach that satisfies those 4 core values is considered an Agile approach. If you now create an approach and label it with your name, and this approach that you create adheres to those 4 core values, then your approach is considered an Agile approach. Okay? You give priority to your team and interaction. You give priority to delivering working product rather than comprehensive documentation. You give priority to collaborate with customer rather than sticking to a contract. You give priority to responding to change rather than sticking or following a plan. Okay? What is the referring exactly? Documentation. You need to document, right? While you manage your project and while you create the product, there are lots of things to document, right? You document all the issue, you document all the changes, you document your schedule management plan, you document scope management plan, you document the design of the product, you document how to use the product, you document the product attributes and the changes that happen to them, and so on. All of this is considered documentation, okay? Now, in traditional project management, we do a comprehensive documentation. Documentation is very important in traditional project management. You need to document everything. There's a general rule. I think you've heard of it before in traditional project management. If it's not documented, it does not exist. I think you heard of this rule, right? If it's not documented, it does not exist. So we don't believe anything unless it is documented, okay? In Agile, it's the other way around. In Agile project management, documentation, we call documentation is, or we label documentation is lightweight. So we do minimum documentation. We call it also barely sufficient. So you do the barely sufficient documentation. We also called it sometimes just because there are some compliance requirements or customer requirements. So we do the documentation just because again, we think the value is in creating a working product. So instead of spending hours and hours and hours of the team's time to document, it's better to use their time in developing a working product, right? You have an expert in, for instance, in programming. You don't want to waste his time or her time in documenting, in 3 hours or 5 hours in documenting. You want to use their time to invest in creating the working product, right? So documentation in Agile, again, is barely sufficient, is lightweight, is done just in time, at the last responsible moment. We do it at the last responsible moment. When we finish creating what we are creating, we document it. So instead of documenting and updating the documents according to the changes, and then updating again and updating again and updating again, no. Wait until you finish and you settle, and then you document. Okay, documenting at the last responsible moment. So this is how we go about documentation in the Agile project management, which is again completely different from the traditional project management. In traditional project management, documentation is very important, and we will explain, we will see later on, is done very carefully and is updated all the time, and we have a plan for that. We have a plan of maintaining the documents and updating the documents and version control and so on. We call it the configuration management plan. Okay, does that make sense? So again, you need to make sure that you understand and that you also memorize those core 4 values. If you want to summarize them in this way. I do that. Individuals, working product, customer, change. Those are the 4 most important words, right? Individuals, working product or product, customer, change. Okay, so individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Working product or working software over comprehensive documentation. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Responding to change over following a plan. Yes, thank you, Muaz. Okay, now these are the 4 core values of the Agile project management. The manifesto also indicated 12 guiding or supporting principles to explain more or to elaborate more about those core values or pillars. They came up with 12 guiding principles, or we call them also supporting principles, and they are as follows. And they are very interesting, and I think they create a completely different mindset from the traditional project management, as you will see. The first principle indicates that our highest priority is to satisfy the customers through yearly and continuous delivery of valuable software or, again, product. So the main focus here of the team is to satisfy the customer. And how is the customer satisfied? What satisfies actually the customer? Again, is it the comprehensive documentation? Is it the reports that I'm going to send to the customers? Is it the files and the folders that I'm going to send the customer? Are those capable of satisfying the customer without having a working product? No, the customer wants to see something that is working, right? I think you would all agree with this. For the customer, the most important thing is to give them something that they can check and is working properly, right? It might not be the final product, but it's a working product. Might be a bare bone product. We call it a minimum viable product, but it's a product that works at minimum. So what we do as a team is we try to deliver this working product as soon as possible, early, and we increment on it. Now remember that Agile is what? Is iterative and incremental, right? So we deliver something that works, and in every other iteration, we add new features and functions that make that product more usable, okay? And this is the value that the customer is seeking, and this is how we deliver value to the customer, okay? Does that make sense? Excellent. Principle 2. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. So we welcome changes. Now, underline these words, they are very important. In Agile, we welcome changes, even if they come late at the end of the project. We don't have a problem with that because, again, we want to satisfy the customer, we want to deliver value for the customer. So even if the customer requests late changes in the product, in the project, we don't mind that. We welcome that. And this is the opposite of traditional project management. In traditional project management, we don't welcome changes. We hate changes. We believe that changes are disruptive because the changes will cause us to update all the documents and to update all the plans, and this requires formal change requests and so on and so forth, right? But in Agile, it's the other way around. We welcome changing requirements. Agile processes, as you will see when we explain how Agile works, you will understand how Agile is capable of welcoming changes even in late development stages. Agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. We always try to help the customer realize their competitive advantage and realize their value, okay, and return on investment. Principle number 3, deliver working software frequently, or again, working product, okay, frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with preference to the shorter time scales. So again, we're trying to deliver as soon as possible a working product, and the shorter that we can deliver the product, the better. So better we try to, again, deliver a minimum viable product, and then with iterations, we can increment on that product. Principle number 4, business people and developers, team, business people and team, project team, must work together daily throughout the project. It's very risky and it's very dangerous to separate business people from project team. So, for instance, the customer, we start working and we don't take the feedback from the customer for 1 month or 2 months, and then when we get back to the customer, they find that we created something completely different from their expectations. No, we need to have this quick loop of feedback between the people creating the product and the people that will use the product, which we call here the business people. So the business people are the people that will use the product. Basically, they are the customers of us, right? So we need to have this interaction. We need to have this quick feedback loop. We should be working together on daily basis in order to take this quick feedback and to make sure that we are working to their expectations. There is no gap in expectations between the business people and the project team, okay? And you will see that actually we will have someone that represents the customer within the project team, which we call the product owner, as you will see later on. So the product owner is someone who works with the project team, with the developers or the project team, and is considered one of the team, and they work together on daily basis, okay? Number 5, build projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. Now, this reminds you of what? Of the servant leadership style that we explained earlier on, right? So, and of course, the first core value that we have just mentioned, individuals and interaction over processes and tools. Yes, stewardship also in the 7th edition of the PMBOK. So basically, again, who creates the product? The team, the individuals. So in order for the individuals to create the best product, you need to keep them what? Motivated. You need to give them the environment, the proper environment, the healthy environment. You need to support them. You need to trust them, empower them, self-organized, self-directed. You need to remove the impediments, right? You need to shelter them, to shield them, to provide them with resources, all the principles that we have indicated in the servant leadership style, right? This is the 5th principle. The 6th principle is the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team or working team is face-to-face conversation. So what's the best way of communication? What's the best way of conveying information? Face-to-face, right? This is a principle in Agile project management. Try to avoid making calls. Try to avoid sending emails, sending faxes, sending WhatsApp messages. The best way, if you can what? Meet. The best way is to meet face-to-face and to communicate face-to-face. Okay? I think you all agree on this, right? Okay, 7th principle is working product, working software or a product is the primary measure of progress. How do you measure the progress in the project? By counting the tasks that has been finished or has been done. Now, in traditional project management, you might do this. You might calculate or measure the progress by saying we completed 50 tasks out of 100 tasks. So basically, the progress is 50%. In traditional project management, someone might do that. But in Agile project management, we never do that. In Agile project management, we measure progress by the working product. The complete product, for instance, should have 10 or 20 functions. We developed 10 functions and we tested them and they are working properly. So now the progress is 50%. If you developed only 5 working functions, then the progress is 25% and so on. So we measure the progress of the project based on the working product, again, the working product, okay? The 8th product, Agile processes promote sustainable development. So we focus on sustainability while developing the product. How? The sponsors, developers, and users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. So it means in every iteration, and for that reason we have the iterations. So it means in every iteration we should be able to deliver almost the same size of work. So to maintain the sustainability and consistency throughout the project life cycle, okay? And this is reflected again when we do that in iterations and increments. Principle 9, continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Attention to details of design of technical excellence prevents making mistakes and prevents rework. And this will enhance the agility. This will make the team perform faster when we avoid, right from the beginning, when we avoid doing mistakes. So for that reason, we need to pay attention to the details, to the technical excellence, to the quality when we design, for instance. Okay, it's not waste of time. It's the other way around. When you pay attention to those details and to technical excellence, you are avoiding and preventing mistakes right from the beginning, and avoiding the rework efforts that might need to be done later on. Principle number 10, which is very actually a beautiful principle, I would consider it, simplicity. Agile encourages you all the time to use the simplest thing that works, to do things in a very simple way, to use very simple tools. What is simplicity by definition in Agile? Simplicity by definition in Agile is the art of maximizing the amount of work not done. Maximize the work not done. This means minimize the work that you need to do. Minimize the work done and maximize the work not done. So basically use the simplest way to achieve an objective or to achieve a task. This is essential, and this enhances agility, and this helps you avoid complexity. Try to use the simplest tools, the simplest steps, minimize the work that needs to be done, maximize the work that you don't need to do, and you get things very simple. Okay. Number 11, the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So this is the reason why we empower the team. This is the reason why we ask the team to organize themselves and to direct themselves. Why? Because we trust the team and we know the team is expert. They are expert in what they are doing. So we don't want to interfere with their tasks. We don't want to interfere of who does what in the team, because we are probably not the experts. They are the experts of what they're doing. They are the experts of developing or testing or whatever they are creating. And each one of them knows their strengths and their weaknesses. So when they assign the tasks and exchange the tasks, they do it properly because they know, each one of them know exactly what they can do well and what they can't do well. Okay, so for instance, I know myself that I'm very good at JavaScript. I'm very good at developing with JavaScript. So if you have a task development in JavaScript, I will take it because I know I'm very confident of doing that. While the other person is very confident in their design skills. So when we have design, we give it to this person and so on. Okay, so self-organizing team. By doing or by empowering the team to be self-organized, you get from them the best architecture, the best design, the best work. Number 12, at regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. So the team should practice a continuous improvement process. The team needs to reflect on their performance every now and then, basically in every iteration. We do this in every iteration, and you will see how later on. So in every iteration, the team should stop and reflect on their performance in the iteration and collect lessons learned and decide how to improve their performance in the next iteration. So this is done every iteration, and we have this, again, loop of continuous improvement in every iteration. Okay, so these are the 12 principles of Agile project management. You don't have to memorize those, fortunately. You only have to memorize the 4 core values that we have mentioned. Okay, all of these again are part of the Agile Manifesto, developed in 2001. Sayed asks, to what extent the Agile principles match? To all extents, actually. If you read the 7th edition, you find it compiled and formulated the same way the Agile was formulated and compiled. The 7th edition, again, is a mindset, is not a specific approach, and Agile is a mindset. The 7th edition is principle-based, the principles that we have mentioned, the 8 principles that we have mentioned, and Agile is also principle-based. It's based on 12 principles. Okay, so there is a complete alignment between the 7th edition and the Agile approaches. However, the 7th edition, again, is an umbrella that covers Agile approaches and also non-Agile approaches, traditional approaches. And for this reason, in this course, we will cover both. We will cover traditional approaches and Agile approaches. Okay, but all the time, especially in the exam, when you take the exam, you all the time assume that you are working in an Agile approach, unless otherwise specified. Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Great. I think it's fair to stop here before taking you, because now we will explain the whole process of of managing the Agile and of managing the project in an Agile approach. So I'll leave that to the next lecture when everyone is focused. Okay. Okay, we have a question. PMBOK 7th and Agile both are based on, no, PMBOK 7th edition is based on 8 principles. We explained them, I think, in the second lecture, while Agile is based on 12 principles that we have just explained them here. Okay, great. So if you don't have any other question, see you next Tuesday, inshallah. Have a good evening, and thank you everyone again for attending. And we will meet on Tuesday. Thank you.